Hello and welcome to News Center. I'm Parikshit Luthra. A shocking incident is creating ripples around the world. Former US President Donald Trump has arrived in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention after narrowly surviving an assassination attempt less than 48 hours ago. A 20-year-old gunman fired 3 rounds at Trump while addressing a rally at the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania. Trump was injured after a bullet grazed his ear. Speaking to the Washington Examiner, Trump said, and I quote, "I rarely look away from the crowd. Had I not done that in that moment, well, we would not be talking today, would we?" End of quote. The US Secret Service is facing several questions after the attempt on Trump's life. The gunman was positioned on a roof just about 140 meters from the podium where Trump was delivering his address. The gunman was killed by the Secret Service officials immediately. 1 person attending the rally has died and 2 others injured. Officials have identified the gunman as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Investigators believe he acted alone and the motive for the shooting remains unclear. Amid this backdrop, Trump is in battleground Milwaukee, which is a crucial swing state for the first full-scale Republican National Convention in 8 years. This is the event where the Republican Party is expected to confirm Trump's candidacy for the White House. Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, is scheduled to speak at the convention today. The 4-day event is set to culminate with an address from Donald Trump on Thursday. In a rare Oval Office address, President Biden unequivocally condemned the attack on Trump and said politics should never become a killing field.
Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured. I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and I keep him and his family in our prayers. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence, ever.
NBC's Jay Gray joins us now from Butler, Pennsylvania, the scene of the tragic incident. Jay, tell us more about the investigation so far.
This area, the scene of Saturday's rally, is still locked down. Multiple federal investigations focused on what is now a crime scene. The FBI working to learn more about the 20-year-old suspect in this attempted assassination, Thomas Matthew Crooks. Described by classmates in high school as a bit of an outcast, a loner, someone who they say was occasionally bullied. That while Homeland Security and now independent investigators are looking for what may have led to what many in law enforcement are calling a catastrophic breakdown of the former president's Secret Service detail. Former President Trump continuing his schedule in Milwaukee today just ahead of the start of the Republican National Convention there, saying that he won't allow a, quote, shooter or attempted assassin to change his schedule or anything else. President Biden addressing the nation last night, calling for calm, calling for an easing of tensions in what has been a very vitriolic political campaign season as we now move into the conventions over the next couple of weeks. We know that the FBI is continuing to reach out and try and find out anything they can about Crooks. We know that his family is cooperating with this investigation and that his cell phone and other electronic equipment now at the FBI lab in Quantico, where it's being reviewed. The hope is that data can help to provide some information toward understanding a motive here.
So how will this incident impact the U.S. presidential election? To discuss that and more, we're now joined with former diplomats, Ambassador Singh and Ambassador Meera Shankar. Ambassador Shankar, if I can begin with you, how do you think this will raise questions for the U.S. Secret Service? Now, here you had a shooter who was 150 yards away on a building, on a rooftop, and he fired a shot which could have been fatal for Donald Trump. It pierced his ear. It was a narrow save. What kind of questions does this raise? And according to past precedents, what is the action that could have been taken now against the authorities?
Well, I think we have to wait for the full result of the investigation to be available. The important thing is that the assassination attempt was not successful, because that would have been a very drastic moment for the US. So I think that is the important aspect here, that it was an attempt which failed, and that the Secret Service was able to protect Donald Trump. It shows how polarized the United States is politically, where this campaign has seen a level of bitter rhetoric, which we have not witnessed in recent years. And it also shows that Trump has handled himself well in a moment of crisis, and that may play to his advantage, though positions on both sides are so entrenched that we have to see if it shakes confirmed voters. Where it might make an impact is voters who are undecided. And of course, for the Democratic Party, there's still confusion about Biden's candidature, but this crisis, in a sense, takes the focus away from the whole issue of Biden's age and his candidature to dealing with the crisis at the moment. One interesting point is that both President Biden and former President Trump have said that it's important to dial back the rhetoric and to bring America together. You know, Biden has condemned the incident and said that there is no place for political violence in American politics, and politics cannot be a battlefield, much less a killing field. President Trump has said that he's redrafting his speech for the convention, where initially he was to attack Joe Biden's policies, but now he wants to focus more on bringing people together and uniting America. So let's see what he says. But it appears to be a rare moment of unity, in a sense, between the two contestants.
Right. Unity of thought between the two contestants. But at the same time, Ambassador K.C. Singh, does this increase Donald Trump's chances of winning the presidential election? Would you say that the fate of the presidential election 2024 is now decided, it's sealed? Ambassador K.C. Singh, can you hear me? All right. All right. We will connect again with Ambassador K.C. Singh. But Ambassador Meera Shankar, if I can come to you with the same question, do you think the fate of the U.S. election is now sealed and Donald Trump is all set to win the election, and this incident would just boost his chances?
Well, I think that it will increase sympathy for Trump. And if you've seen the polls so far, both candidates were neck and neck, though Biden had been dropping a bit after the presidential debate. But more important, in the 5 or 6 swing states, Trump was ahead in most and Biden was ahead in 1. And therefore, you know, Biden had an uphill task to cover that ground and make up. Now, of course, the cards seem to be stacked more in favor of Trump. But we really don't know as yet, you know, the question of the Democratic candidature. Will Biden eventually agree to step down? Will there be another candidate? How robust would that candidate be? Would they have enough time to take on Trump? But as I mentioned, you know, confirmed believers on both sides are not going to budge. So those who support the Democrats will continue to support them, and those who support the Republicans will continue to support them. But where it could make a difference is perhaps the undecided voter who's still to make up his or her mind.
Right. So you are saying that the undecided voter will have to be impacted, and we'll have to see where the undecided voters go. But give us a sense, do you expect the rhetoric in the campaign to be less going forward?
Well, the Democratic Party has pulled back the negative advertisements that they had put out for Trump. And Trump is also, talking about cooling things off. But we have to see how long these good intentions last. In politics, good intentions and consensus and bringing people together don't perhaps endure for as long as, people might like them to.
Right. I wonder if Ambassador K.C. Singh is with us and if we can go across to him. All right. I believe not yet. We will try and get him on the phone in some time from now. There are still a few months to go for the presidential elections to conclude, Ambassador Meera Shankar. But how do you think this incident will put the emphasis, put the focus on gun laws in the United States and the approach, the campaign approach of both candidates towards that?
Well, Biden has been trying for some time to bring in controls on unrestricted access to guns, especially assault weapons. But because of recent public shootings, particularly in schools, which have aroused considerable public concern. But this has been opposed fiercely by the Republican Party, and he has not been able to steer it through the Congress and the Senate. I do expect that this issue will receive renewed focus in the wake of this assassination attempt. While we don't know enough at the moment about what motivated Thomas Matthew Crooks, the alleged assassin, he was very young. He was 20 years old. He had access to a rifle, perhaps, which his father had purchased some months ago. In school, he has been described by some of his classmates as a loner and someone who was bullied mercilessly. Others have said, no, he was a good student who got good grades and took a particular interest in history and governance. So mixed picture, but at some level, and he was also part of a shooting club, which he used to attend. He's a registered Republican voter, but this profile of being a loner, somewhat of a social misfit, is something which we've seen in other random acts of public shooting in the past. So we have to see, and I think it would be good if America were to be able to agree on some controls and restraints for access to weapons, because it's pretty easy there still.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Meera Shankar, for joining us. We are taking a short break, but coming up, gross direct tax collections rise over 23% in the first 4 months of this financial year. How much revenue cushion does it leave the government with ahead of the budget? We discuss that up next with two economists, Rumki Majumdar